From Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Residents scamper for safety amid unprecedented flooding following heavy rainfall across Nigeria's major cities. In a move towards reconciliation, President Tinubu confers posthumous honors on Ogoni Four, pledges economic revival in the region. Malawi President concedes defeat in presidential election, affirms his rival had insurmountable lead.
In business, House of Representatives pledges to ensure transparency and efficiency in proposed Naira 4 crude oil policy.
In sports, Nigeria intensifies quest to host Commonwealth Games in Africa for the first time as it submits an official bid in London on Wednesday.
Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with climate matters. As major cities across Nigeria have been ravaged by widespread flooding following heavy rainfall, resulting in significant displacement and loss of life. As of September the 20th, 2025, the National Emergency Management Agency reported 232 fatalities with 121,224 displaced persons. Some of the most impacted states include Lagos, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Kogi. Reports say 5 communities were submerged in Ibaji local government area, with 42 IDP camps opened to manage displacement. Many parts of Lagos State were also heavily impacted by flooding on Wednesday, where streets were submerged, movements disrupted, and commuters stranded. Philip Jakbo is an environmental rights activist and executive director at Renewable Development Initiative. He joins me now to look at the latest incidents of flooding ravaging states across Nigeria and recommend measures to mitigate it. Thank you very much for being here. This is a humanitarian crisis in Nigeria, isn't it? I mean, it's unprecedented. It's unexpected, at the same time familiar. We have this warning every single year, yet we have people dying as a result of the rains. What are we to expect looking ahead?
So every word you have used, you hit the nail on the head. And you rightly mentioned that this has been a yearly ritual. Why has this continued to happen? This has continued to happen because no one is held to account. No one is getting sanctioned for not doing the right thing. No one is questioning what the state governments are using ecological funds for. So that why we continue to have this year in, year out. And it has been, when we had the affected 21 states of the Federation. You mentioned Ibaji. Ibaji is in Kogi State. Now, Kogi State, even in 2012, was the epicenter of the flooding. And here we are again discussing the same issue. Now, the fortunate thing here is that NIMET and the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agencies have continued to improve, because every year they give this notice to get the states to act. These warnings are not just talk shop. The warnings are expected to ginger the states to action. But unfortunately, it seems we have very disaster capitalists who believe when these floods happen and they have to respond in terms of taking care of people who are displaced, they will make money or their other benefits from, this action.
So I'm sorry, a thought just came to my head and I need you to speak to that. And this warning that we have, should it just be warning, considering that despite these warnings, things still happen, people still get displaced? Is it better to have warnings and plans as to how we can mitigate some of these fallout, unavoidable cases where people become IDPs in their own communities?
You see, what is happening is completely avoidable because the states can actually manage what is happening. So we don't need the floods to begin before state governments tell you that they've set up emergency centers for displaced persons. Now, these states are collecting ecological funds every year, and we don't know what they are doing with these monies. Well, we know they are diverting these monies because we expect at this point that every state must have a temporal shelters. But it can't be even temporal anymore because the rains are increasing every year. These shelters should be in place all the time so that when we tell people to evacuate, we are telling them to evacuate to a particular place. Not just telling people to evacuate and then housing people in schools, housing people in town halls and all this nonsense that we continue to see. It is corruption. It is the fact that no one is held to account. That's why these things are happening. Nothing more, nothing less. That is why our people are suffering needlessly. People are dying needlessly. Houses are getting destroyed needlessly. This is going to affect food security because the areas where you have this flooding, you've had in Damawa, Yobe, Ogi, this is the food belt. And when you have farmlands underwater, you have people displaced. You have people exposed to waterborne diseases and illnesses. Because even when these waters recede, don't forget, the flood waters have affected wells and other sources of water. So what people are going to be consuming is going to be poison, things that will be killing people gradually. So no one is held to account. That's why it's happening. I repeat it. These state governments are collecting monies. What they are doing with these monies, we don't know. Okay,
let's pretend that, for instance, that the government is not doing what they should with those funds. If you were to be in charge, what would be some priorities you think that as a nation we should be pursuing for long-term mitigating efforts to reduce the impact of the continuing climate change?
Well, I think what we should be doing is actually adaptation, not even mitigation. Mitigation is for things that we don't prepare for. But the fact that you have NIMET 1 in every year, it means we know this is going to happen. So we should put in place so we should put some things in place. So one of the things I've mentioned and continue to mention is that the shelters that we're talking about should be more permanent structures. When we had the COVID-19 pandemic, these structures came up suddenly.
Okay, a bit of a network challenge. The network impacts everything. The weather rather impacts everything, including communication tonight. Philip, if you can hear me, thank you very much for speaking with us, even though I would have loved to explore your thoughts further as to our personal responsibilities in helping government manage this situation. Coming up tonight, all hands on deck. Nigeria unveils theme for its 65th independence anniversary. We have details on this and more when we return. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Residents scamper for safety amid unprecedented flooding following heavy rainfall across Nigeria's major cities. In a move towards reconciliation, President Tinubu confers posthumous honors on Ogoni Four, pledges economic revival in the region. Malawi President concedes defeat in presidential election, affirms his rival had insurmountable lead. President Bola Tinubu has conferred national honors on 4 late Ogoni leaders, popularly remembered as the Ogoni Four: Albert Bade, Edward Kobani, Theophilus Oraji, and Samuel Oraji were each posthumously awarded the Commander of the Order of the Niger. The announcement came as the president received the report of the Ogoni Consultations Committee at the State House in Abuja. News Center's correspondent Bettina Uweli reports.
President Bola Tinubu has urged the Ogoni people to embrace reconciliation and unity after decades of division, assuring that his administration will back peace, environmental recovery, and economic revival of the region.
Today, in completing the cycle of recognition, I hereby confirm national honor as the Commander of the Order of Niger, CON, on the following instructions: Chief Edward Kobani, CON, posthumous; Chief Albert Badi, CON, posthumous; Chief Samuel Orage, CON, posthumous; Chief Theophilus Orage, CON, posthumous.
The president also pledged government support for the resumption of oil production in Ogoni land, directing the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu to begin engagement with stakeholders to finalize modalities for restarting operations. The NSA and committee chairman, Professor Don Baridam, explained that the consultations reflected the collective will of the people with demands for structured participation in oil production, renewed cleanup efforts, and sustainable development.
Recognizing the Ogoni Four will demonstrate a holistic commitment to acknowledging all victims of the past conflicts and a deeper understanding of the complex historical context. It will further pave the way for lasting peace, unity, and a sense of complete justice within the Ogoni Nation and the broader Niger Delta region.
There is every sign that this government is serious about resolving these issues. And I think we need to give them all the necessary opportunity and time to ensure that this problem is resolved once and for all.
The president says that the reopening of oil exploration must transform Ogoni's painful history into a foundation for lasting peace, prosperity, and national progress. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Away to the United Nations headquarters, where the Namibian president is addressing the United Nations General Assembly. Stay tuned.
Is built on the strong foundation and legacy of our predecessors under the theme Unity in Diversity, Natural Resources Beneficiation, and Youth Empowerment for Sustainable Development. That theme aims to shape and transform the Namibian economy through value addition and other economic activities. Hence, we have identified agriculture, sports, youth empowerment, education and training, creative industry, health services, land and housing as critical sectors supported by mining, energy, water, tourism, infrastructure development, transport, logistics, to sustain our economic development through our long-term development blueprint, Vision 2030. This vision is being implemented through a series of National Development Plans, NDPs. Recently, we launched the 6th NDP with its fundamental pillars clearly aligned to the global agenda, such as the SADC Regional Inductive Strategic Development Plan, the African Union Agenda 2063, and the UN Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. Some of our achievements include the launch and the operationalization of the National Youth Fund, which is to assist the young entrepreneur in their economic activities. In the area of education, we will abolish registration and tuition fees in all public institutions of higher learning and vocational training centers to ensure skill development. On energy, Namibia is diversifying her energy mix using all our natural resources. In addition, Namibia presented her energy compact at the African Energy Forum, thus enabling us to access concessional funding for national energy initiatives. Madam President, climate change is scorching our lands and drying up our rivers. Global instability is impacting our economies, our markets, and jeopardizing our livelihood. These are interconnected symptoms of deeper fragility in our shared system. They require our collective action rooted in apathy and shared responsibility. In this regard, I am glad to announce Namibia's bid to host the Africa Regional Hub of the Green Climate Fund. Furthermore, severe droughts, floods, and other climatics brought about by climate change cannot be overemphasized. Namibia calls for the implementation of the provision of the Namib Declaration on a strong United Nations Convention to combat desertification for a land degradation and neutral world. Namibia acknowledges the technological advance in all fields, but ethical boundaries must be respected. However, artificial intelligence must not be a substitute for human judgment or responsibility. We therefore call for a global standard that ensures that the usage of artificial intelligence remains transparent, fair for humanity. Youth unemployment, increased economic inequality, lack of adequate housing, quality education and health care, water, energy, and debt distress are among the common challenges that no one country can address alone. Through multilateral cooperation, our collective action must ensure that we all forge ahead to make the world a better place and to work together on those challenges in line with our theme, Better Together. Madam President, 30 years since the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, we have made much to celebrate and to ponder on. Namibia continues to make progress in the area of women participation in politics and decision-making. Currently, Namibia's cabinet has 57% of women. As we gear up to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, adopted during Namibia's presidency of the UN Security Council, Namibia will host 2 high-level events in Windhoek and New York. I look forward to the participation of all member states in those events to collectively reaffirm commitment to women, peace and security agenda. And through the Namibia International Women Peace Center, we will continue to advocate for the universal implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. Madam President, we note the ongoing efforts of the UN to ensure that we remain fit for purpose, including the UN 8 initiative. We need an agile United Nations that is inclusive, respect of the UN Charter and its purpose and principles must be our guiding star for our future endeavors. Madam President, we are meeting against a backdrop of profound global tension. The world is fractured by conflict, displacement, and economic instability, instabilities straining multilateral cooperation, and a serious issue for us to reach consensus. A global liquidity crisis threatens to plunge millions of people into poverty and insecurity. For Namibia, those crises are real. They impact our communities, test the resilience of our ecosystem, thus need urgent attention. In this context,
That's President of Namibia speaking, giving her speech at the ongoing United Nations General Assembly, the 80th edition. Let's switch now to my colleague who has been on the ground and giving us updates on what's happening. Bernard Akede, good to see you again. Please talk to us about key events on day 3, especially having witnessed a couple of African leaders address this assembly. Day 2.
Yes, it's day 3. Okay, day 2. Yes, I was going to say it's day 3, but it's day 2 of the high-level conversations. So basically, I think the key events that I can speak about will be, I would want to pick on the conversations that have been going on and what has been said. One of the biggest people who spoke today, who spoke heavily, was Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. There were a lot of people who were eager to hear him speak, of course, because of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. And he came heavily, he hammered heavily on the use of technology and how it has favored the more developed world as regards the less developed countries of the world. He talked about the use of artificial intelligence, which you probably have heard most of the presidents speak about. Now, it seems like there has been a new face to AI as regards what people have seen and known. Now, the larger community would see AI largely as just the use of, just for grammatical use. Whereas at this UN General Assembly, there has been emphasis on the use of AI in terms of warfare. Zelensky talked about how there are drones that are now target specific. You know, there are drones that have been used to manipulate governments. There are drones that now fight, dirty warfare, so to speak. And then countries with greater technology are the ones who, of course, can manipulate this kind of drones and artificial intelligence. As a matter of fact, there are drones that can be used to counter other drones. Just as the way you have AI tools being used to search what has been written by AI tools. You know, so largely there's been hammering on how there should be a fair play when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence and how there should be some regulation by, of course, the United Nations. And then I'll end this question by also saying that there also have been conversations as to how the United Nations and, of course, the Security Council of the United Nations has not been playing its part in checkmating the excesses of certain countries, big countries like the United States, like Russia, and, of course, like Israel. So I would like to say that, you know, these have been some of the major recurring conversations that we've been getting from certain world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly this year.
All right, Bernard, I wanted to speak quickly on News Central's town hall. That is for Thursday. For us here, it's tomorrow. What are we doing in terms of, I know it's on the sidelines of this UN General Assembly. Are there some names? Because I saw when News Central's editor-in-chief spoke, Mr. Kintemi, he spoke to UNFPA executive director, and she said she might show up at the town hall if she is free. So talk to us about preparations on that.
All right, as we speak now, you probably would have noticed that I'm here on my own, and that's because the rest of the crew has gone to the venue of the town hall to make final preparations towards the town hall event, which will be tomorrow. Like clearly mentioned, it's a side event. It's one of the side events that takes place around the United Nations General Assembly. I would not want to, for sake of security, I would not want to mention names that may be appearing, but of course, we have gotten some really notable personalities who have agreed to join physically or virtually. Of course, we also know that it's going to be well attended, but we do hope it will be well attended because of a conversation that we're looking to have. Again, we're talking about Nigerians in diaspora and how they have been excluded or disenfranchised because they are not particularly on ground. We're able to speak to some Nigerians, and they put into perspective the figures that Nigerians in diaspora contribute year in, year out, billions of dollars to the growth and development of Nigeria. And it actually is of huge concern that people who are putting this forth to the country's development are not allowed to cast their vote when it comes to elections. So I'll simply answer your question by saying, yes, preparations are underway. We're in the last final minutes of preparations, and we have good responses from those who would like to attend both physically and virtually.
All right, Bernard, let's let you get back to work. We will still be speaking with you much later. Thank you for now.
Thank you for having me.
Nigeria's federal government has announced Nigeria at 65, all hands on deck for a greater nation, as the official theme for the country's 2025 Independence Day celebrations. Segun Imohieson, Director of Information and Public Relations at the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, said the theme calls for unity, collaboration and patriotism among all sectors to drive national peace and progress. Planned activities include a Jumat prayer on September 26 and interdenominational church service on September 28 and a World Press Conference in Abuja on September 29. Still ahead, Malawi opposition leader Bobi Wine cleared to run against Museveni in 20. Uganda opposition leader, I beg your pardon, Bobi Wine cleared to run against Museveni in 2026. Details after the break. Glad you're still with us. The Central Bank of Nigeria has taken fresh steps to balance growth with inflation easing. Therefore, at its just concluded Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the monetary policy rate was cut by 50 basis points to 27%, while the cash reserve ratio for commercial banks dropped by 500 basis points to 45%. For Martin Bank's cash reserve ratio, CRR, was retained at 16%, alongside the liquidity ratio at 30%. The bank also adjusted a symmetric corridor to a plus or minus 250 basis points and introduced a 75% CRR on non-TSA public sector deposits. Mokhtar Mohammed is the CEO at Finance with Mokhtar, and he joins me now to discuss the economic issues. Thank you for being here. Inflation drops for fifth consecutive time. Now, the MPC cuts interest rate to 27%. In a simple language, please explain.
In a simple language, what it means is that you can borrow at a lower rate now. When they say they cut interest rates, that means that you can borrow at a lower rate compared to what you were borrowing last time that the rate was up. That's definitely what it means in a simple language.
Analysts say the moves tighten liquidity while supporting economic stability. Could you speak on this?
Yeah, I can't but agree with that. If you look at the economy, you realize that we've had a lot of non-performing loans. And so a lot of companies have borrowed and they are not able to pay. And so what we have seen now is that they will have more liquidity, like the cash reserve ratio was moved from 50% to 45%, 5%. So that will mean that the banks will have more liquidity to borrow to the real sector. You also saw that point whereby 75% of TSA also will be kept, rather than banks using TSA money to give back to government. It will now just use about 25% of that money, and that also should be used towards galvanizing the economy. Well, I think we must commend the current CBN management team. They've come in with a lot of innovation that we are seeing that will definitely help the economy, especially with the rate cut. But again, it's now becoming a global thing where you see the rate cut, Ghana cut rate, Tanzania cut rate, Angola cut rate, US have cut rate, and virtually all economy are cutting rate, just like at the point all economy were increasing the rate. So for me, I think it's a good move. I didn't expect it. I thought there would be a rate cut, but maybe towards the last MPC meeting of the year. So it's a good move, but especially for smaller business. Okay, people will ask what's the impact on the equity market? The impact on the equity market is going to be positive. Will we have that negative impact on the fixed income space? I don't think so, because when you have rate cut globally now, what you see that you see a lot of funds coming back to Nigeria, because Nigerian fixed income rate will still be one of the best in the world. So that will not drive investors out of Nigeria. That will also likewise attract more investors into Nigeria. But the big take we have to also commend the CBN for is maintaining stability in the exchange rate, and they are saying that they will continue to do their best to make sure that the naira to the dollar is fairly balanced. So for me, again, kudos to the CBN for what they have done this time around.
Yeah, I was going to ask you holistically if this is a good thing. You've confirmed that it is indeed a good thing. Maintaining stability long term, do you think they can keep to that promise?
Well, I think I'm positive because, again, when you look at the non-oil sector and also you look at the oil sector, you are able to see, we have seen a synergy whereby we have both the non-oil sector and the oil sector contributing to the Nigerian economy. So definitely when you have a shock in one area, then you might also have a positive outlook in the other area. There's nothing for us to fear. Again, the man that is down, fear no fall, because our oil benchmark is about $70 per barrel. As it stands now, we are doing about $66. And again, we have improved our revenue generation internally. So long-term stability is still good. It's still achievable. Oil output at this it was about 1.68 million barrels. We are improving on that also. So definitely all the signals for long-term stability of the current economic result that we have seen is very realistic. As from what I've seen, from what we are doing, exchange rate is still going down. The dollar compared to global currency is still weak, and also we are capitalizing on that. And we have attracted a lot of inflow. The reserve is in its 5-year high, about $42 billion reserve. So all looks good. I think we will be able to maintain that stability in the long term, especially if we keep doing what we are doing.
All right, Makta, as always, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
Kenyan President William Ruto on Wednesday told the United Nations General Assembly that Africa's exclusion from permanent membership on the Security Council is unfair and undermines the UN's credibility. He called for reforms granting Africa at least 2 permanent seats with full rights, including the veto power, plus 2 additional non-permanent seats. Ruto underscored that Africa bears the heaviest cost of instability and contributes large peacekeeping forces, yet remains the only continent without permanent representation and the council. Also, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara has called for an end to all sanctions on Syria, urging the international community to support his country's rebuilding efforts after years of conflict. Al-Shara made the call while addressing the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday, marking the first time in nearly 6 decades that a Syrian leader has spoken at the UN. He described Syria's recent military victory as peaceful, claiming it caused no civilian deaths or displacements. Al-Shara condemned ongoing Israeli attacks and called for respect of Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, the news from Uganda. Opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has been cleared to run in the presidential election scheduled in January. This comes a week after his initial submission was rejected. After Wednesday's decision, Wine, a pop star turned politician, can once again challenge President Yoweri Museveni, who is seeking a record 7th term in office. The 81-year-old has ruled the country since 1986. Wine's National Unity Platform, NUP party, now has the largest number of seats among the opposition in parliament, with much of its support coming from working-class communities in urban areas. And to one of our headline stories, in Malawi, President Lazarus Chakwera has conceded defeat in the just-concluded presidential election, paving the way for a return to power by former President Peter Mutharika. Chakwera, who has led the country since 2020, acknowledged the outcome in a national address, saying he respects the will of the Malawians and will ensure a smooth transition. With official tallies from Malawi Electoral Commission showing Mutharika in the lead, Chakwera congratulated his predecessor and urged citizens to remain peaceful as the country prepares for the handover of power. Time now for some business, sports, and entertainment right after this break.
Talking business now, Nigeria's House of Representatives has inaugurated an ad hoc committee to evaluate the proposed Naira for crude oil policy, which will see oil sales dominated in Naira instead of US dollars. Committee Chair Emaringwa Sunday emphasized the policy's significance for economic stability and national interest, pledging thorough stakeholder engagement and transparent analysis. Speaker Abbas Tajuddin, represented by Kingsley Chinda, underscored the need for transparency, accountability, and effective implementation. The committee will assess feasibility, sustainability, and potential impact, aiming to strengthen Nigeria's currency and energy sector while providing an evidence-based recommendation for the policy's future direction. We also tell you that the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, has mandated all pension fund administrators and custodians to report foreign currency pension contributions exceeding $10,000 to the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit within 24 hours under new guidelines issued in September 2025. The framework enables Nigerians abroad and local dollar earners to join the contributory pension scheme while enforcing strict anti-money laundering controls. Contributions must be in US dollars, pooled into a dedicated dollar fund and invested mainly in dollar-denominated assets. Withdrawals are restricted and early access attracts taxes, aligning Nigeria's pension sector with global compliance standards. Looking at the equities market now, the NGX dipped 0.15% to close at 140,716 points, with market cap at 89.06 trillion naira, which saw a bit of easing in that as compared to yesterday. And talking about sectoral performance, well, the banking sector rose 1.29%, supported by strength in GTCO and Zenith Bank. And of course, insurance slipped 0.25%, pressured by weakness in, well, some stocks. Oil and gas also edged lower with 0.05%, weighed by slight weakness in Seplat Energy as we tracked. Consumer goods gained 0.55%, driven by demand for Nigerian breweries, while industrial goods added 0.25% as Dangote Cement continues to trade modestly higher. Well, here we see that investors rotate into financials and consumer plays while staying cautious on energy and insurance. And that's it on business. I am Lekon Obanjo. We'll bring you sports news in a bit.
In sports, the bid to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games to the Evaluation Committee of the Commonwealth Sports at the Commonwealth Games headquarters in London, United Kingdom. President Bola Tinubu has called on the Commonwealth to bring the 2030 Games to Nigeria, highlighting the historic significance of Africa hosting the event for the first time. If successful, the bid could see Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, host the first Games on the African continent for the first time in the 100-year history of the Games since it was established in 1930. However, Nigeria faces a strong challenge from India. A delegation from the Asian nation has also formally presented its proposal for hosting the 2030 Games in Ahmedabad. If selected, this will be the second time India will host the competition, following the successful staging of the 2010 edition in New Delhi. Nigeria's under-17 national men's team, the Golden Eagles, defeated neighbors Benin Republic in their first game at the Wafu B under-17 championships in Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast. The Golden Eagles won the game 4-1, with striker George Aha scoring a hat-trick. Aha struck from the penalty spot in the second minute before captain David Ede doubled the lead with a stunning free kick. The forward added 2 more goals in the 14th and the 31st minute to complete the tournament's first hat-trick. Benin Republic scored a consolation goal through Jeremy Zanu. The win puts the Golden Eagles top of Group B ahead of Burkina Faso. The Wafu B Under-17 Championship serves as qualifiers for the 2026 FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Qatar. Now, the National Executive Committee of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria has directed all its members across the country to withdraw from covering or participating in any activity of the Nigeria Football Federation, including the forthcoming annual General Assembly scheduled for Ibadan, Oyo State, on Saturday. In a statement issued today in Abuja, the association expressed outrage over the deliberate and persistent exclusion of SWAN from the statutory composition of the NFF Congress. SWAN described the action of the NFF leadership as unacceptable, retrogressive, and an affront to the role of the sporting media in national development for football. The association also made it clear that all SWAN members nationwide are henceforth instructed to refrain from covering or publicizing any NFF activity, including the Ibadan Annual General Assembly. SWAN reiterated that the exclusion of the sporting media from the highest decision-making body of Nigerian football is unacceptable. Now to boxing. Matchroom Promotions chairman Eddie Hearn has revealed that Ghana are currently leading the chase to land Anthony Joshua's first ever fight in Africa. Joshua has not fought in 12 months when he was knocked out in the 5th round of his dramatic Wembley Stadium showdown with Daniel Dubois. It is now increasingly unlikely that the 35-year-old will box before the end of 2025, but his promoter, Eddie Hearn, says Joshua will definitely return at some point in the first quarter of 2026. Hearn said in an interview earlier this month that Joshua will come back against a top 20 opponent, but it is still very unclear where that fight will take place, with a number of offers on the table for the 2012 Olympic champion. Ezekiel Adamo of Balmora Promotions has also thrown his hat in the ring and revealed earlier this week that his offer is capable of tempting Joshua back to Nigeria and that he has the backing of the Nigerian government. But Hearn says that they are still yet to open talks with Adamo about the possibility, and says that Nigeria's West African rivals, Ghana, are ahead of them in the queue after presenting a very interesting offer. And that's a wrap on Sport Update. I am Udoka Njoko. We have entertainment up next with Edewo.
Let's hand over now to Edewo, who is already here. Hi, Edewo.
How are you doing, Felicity?
I'm good.
Well, the entertainment world ended off on quite an emotional note, but let me give you all the details as it is. As Nollywood actress Mercy Aigbe is mourning the loss of her mother, which she announced on Instagram with a simple post reading "RIP Mom," accompanied by the candlelight image. Now, the news has drawn an outpouring of condolences from colleagues, fans, and friends in the entertainment industry as well, offering prayers and support during her time of grief. Known for her vibrant on-screen roles, Aigbe has not shared details about the cause of her mother's passing yet. Now, the loss comes just 2 months after actor Odunlade Adekola lost his father, reflecting the personal grief Nollywood stars often face publicly. Well, we believe that may the family, have the heart to bear the loss. Felicity, what do you think about this? It's quite an emotional time for Nollywood, emotional time for the family as well.
Yeah, it's an actual event that has to happen, but when it does, it hurts us because of the love that we have for our parents. So my condolences to her and her family.
Interesting. Now let's talk about an emotional, delivery, as Jimmy Kimmel had made an emotional return to the Jimmy Kimmel Live, where he, with a tearful monologue addressing the backlash over his remarks on conservative activist Charlie Kirk's death. ABC had suspended the show after affiliates pulled it off from air. Now, Kimmel clarified he never intended to mock Kirk's passing or target any group, offering an apology if his words were, misinterpreted. He also praised Erica Kirk, that's Charlie Kirk's widow, for publicly forgiving the shooter, calling it deeply moving. Let's hear him out.
Make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on.
While ABC reinstated the show, several affiliates, including Sinclair and Nexter stations, refused to broadcast the episode, making his comeback uneven nationwide. Felicity, what do you get to say about this?
The most important thing is he is back. And misunderstood is something we can never get used to because we're humans, and again, emotions will come in.
Definitely.
But he has done what anyone who is misunderstood and made a mistake,
yes,
that people feel hurt about, he's done what he's supposed to do. He has apologized. I think we should just move on.
Okay, well said, well said. Well, that's all we have on entertainment tonight, by the way.
That is our offering tonight. But before we go, a quick recap of our top stories. Residents scamper for safety amid unprecedented flooding following heavy rainfall across Nigeria's major cities. And in a move towards reconciliation, President Tinubu confers posthumous honors on Ogoni Four, pledges economic revival in the region. Away from Nigeria, we brought you the news that Malawi President conceded defeat in presidential election, affirms his rival had insurmountable lead. Do send us your eyewitness reports. The number to do so is now being displayed on your screen. We'd love a follow from you as well on social media platforms. We are at News Central TV. You can choose to watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, and Apple TV, and streaming live on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind attention. I wish you a good night.